pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Hammond?
Here.
Vice President Daly?
Here.
Trustee Clements? Here. Trustee Hedlund?
Here.
Trustee Parr?
Here.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open up the public hearing for the adopted Haldane budget for the 2019-2020 vote. I believe, Dr. Benante, you will, along with Ann, be presenting.
I will. Do we need a motion to open up the hearing? No? Never mind.
Laura just declares it open.
That's the last time I'll chime in on a procedural matter. Apologize, Mrs. Hammond. So as part of the budget development process, school districts are required to provide an overview of the three-part budget components. So I'll provide an overview this evening, and then if there's any questions by our community members, this will be a good time to ask and answer those. So I am going to reference a few slides as I go through here, and I know all of this is information our Board of Education has seen over the course of the last few months. So I appreciate your patience as we go through it, but for folks who are tuning in at home, perhaps for the first time, we want to try to be as comprehensive as possible without being overly repetitive. And excuse me as I may reference just the slides behind me occasionally to make sure that I'm following along in the appropriate order. To start, I'll mention that this budget development process started with the Board of Education back in December, where the board established certain parameters for the administration as we began our work in the budget development process. As we've discussed over the last 5 months now, I feel we've met our mandate in staying within the parameters that were established by the Board of Education, while at the same time trying to strike the right balance of the community's values and needs being reflected through the budget development process, which can be very difficult to do when you're limited in the amount of money that you can levy from a community. But I think we've done a good job of that. Our administration has worked very hard alongside our leadership within the district, and we're very proud of what we're bringing before the community, or will be bringing before the community in the next couple of weeks. So to summarize our revenue from year over year, our proposed budget is $24,605,000, what it equates to a 2.2% increase year over year between 18-19 and what we're proposing for 19-20. This slide provides an overview of aid, other revenue that the district receives, fund balance that will be appropriated for the budget development, reserves that will be utilized, as well as the tax levy, the amount of funds we'll be levying from the community in this budget development process. The levy-to-levy increase is 2.71%, which is right up to the levy limit that's allowed by New York State law. And as a reminder to community members, our spending plan cannot exceed our anticipated revenues. So it's important that we stay within these parameters as we go into the budget cycle. Okay. Again, this is just another overview of key figures, all of which I've mentioned already. And as far as the three-part budget development, again, we have to report the budget in this particular way. So in the budget book that will be available to the public, they will see this pie chart. The program component constitutes the most significant portion of our budget, approximately 75%. The capital and admin components equate to the remaining balance of 25%. This is an overview of the administrative component, which incorporates Board of Education expenses, superintendent expenses or expenses related to the running of the superintendent's office, the business administration office, legal services, operation and maintenance on the supervisory end, central services, special items, instructional administration, and employee benefits. This is for a total of $2.8 million. The next component, again, the largest component is the program component, which includes the regular school teaching costs, special schools costs, instructional media, pupil services, pupil transportation, interfund transfers, and employee benefits. And these comprise the bulk of the costs associated with the operation of the school district totaling just north of $18 million. And finally, the capital component, which includes operation and maintenance, special items, pupil transportation specific to equipment, our debt service, interfund transfers, and employee benefits, and this totals approximately $3.5 million of our overall budget. Just make sure. Yep. Okay. Now, in addition to Proposition 1, we have 2 additional propositions that'll be available or be before the community for vote. Proposition 2 is the replacement of a transportation vehicle, one 30-passenger school bus. As I've mentioned before, we do try to cycle out school buses, our transportation vehicles, as we're cycling in new ones. We also will add on maintenance equipment purchases as appropriate to these propositions. This proposition does include accessories and equipment for existing utility vehicles that we operate on campus, including a power broom and a lift gate. These are financed over a 5-year period of time. And again, since this is debt that we are bringing on as we are paying off debt on older vehicles, this typically will equate to a tax neutral proposition. One other piece I like to mention, which I know the board has heard from me before, but community members may not have. If we are not in a position to replace this vehicle, we have to essentially find a way to incorporate another vehicle into our fleet, which would happen then through a leasing option if we are not able to purchase a vehicle. It will cost us more to lease a vehicle than it does to purchase a vehicle because we receive aid. We're not eligible to receive aid on a lease. We are on a purchase. So this equates actually to a lesser cost than we would have were this not to pass. Finally, Proposition 3. The capital referendum, the district facilities improvement program will also be before the community on May 21st. This is probably the area of the budget development that's getting the most attention or is being talked about the most among our community right now. And we still do have a few opportunities for the community to come in and meet with Ann, me, and Nabil to talk about the proposition and what it entails. I'll provide, again, a very brief overview that I've provided to the board in the past this evening, just for summary, and then there's a few informational items that are at the end of this. So under the umbrella of health and safety, we're proposing to move an electrical panel in a pump room, repair a bus lift. There's ceiling tile replacements, drop ceiling that we want to put in the Mabel Merritt building, water heater replacements, air handling units that need to be replaced, kitchen equipment that is beyond its useful life expectancy, the addition of window screens on our main building here, and putting guide rails up along Craigside Drive to the area just outside of this particular room. Additionally, we want to upgrade several areas that would help influence or make our campus safer. Our camera systems are in need of updating. Our phone systems are in need of upgrading. There's several door access areas that need to be replaced or upgraded. The inclusion of a visitor management system for folks who are coming in and visiting the school on a day-to-day basis, and other recommendations made through the security audit that was conducted by Alteris. Under the area of program improvement, there is a proposal, or a cost that's included in this is the renovation of the upstairs of the district office to move offices, mainly that fall under the umbrella of the business office, into the district office that are currently in the Mabel Merritt building, to then better utilize the Mabel Merritt building fully for instructional space. Right now it is mixed use. We use the Mabel Merritt building in part for instructional classroom settings, but there are also several business offices that are located in the Mabel Merritt building that we'd like to pull back into the district office, and the upstairs is a space that we can utilize that for. despite what may be out there. I did receive a call today wondering if we were why the superintendent's office was being renovated as part of this referendum, and I can say that's not true. I see that it's quite bold, having only been here for 11 months and already put something out to the community to renovate my office. Not true. I'm staying in the same spot, and again, this is to help move business office functions to or all the business offices, and support staff into the district office. And the goal really there is to enable us to have more instructional space in Mabel Merritt. Program improvement also includes window shades, some tinting and awnings to cover various window units throughout the elementary school. The addition of climate control and shared spaces such as these when we do experience excessive heat, and dehumidifiers where appropriate. Under the preservation of facilities, there are several banks of windows in the elementary school. If you were to look closely at them, you can see the seals are broken. There's moisture that's able to come in side of the school and inside the window units, which is not good for heating efficiency and cooling efficiencies. We'd like to replace those window banks in the elementary school. A stairwell curtain wall and exterior doors, playground equipment, specifically our swing sets, are in need of replacement. Paving along Craigside Drive, starting at the bend as you come up Craigside Drive through the circle area. Fencing, again along Craigside Drive, which is a lot of which is covered by overgrowth, but if you were to look closely, that is some very old fencing that's in need of repair there. Storage buildings for because we need storage space for records and such across the district, and painting to occur in our auditorium and gymnasium, where you can see the painting is starting to flake. We've focused, the focus of this referendum really is on basic needs. We've worked closely with our Buildings and Grounds Committee, really picking up work that had really predates me, perhaps for several years, to address various areas that need to be improved upon in the overall operation of the facility of the school district. I know that there has been dialogue in the past, and I hope there will be dialogue in the future about other space-related needs on campus, whether or not we should renovate an auditorium space or build an auditorium space or other shared space on campus. I don't think we can foray into that discussion before we resolve some basic needs that need to be met throughout our campus. And that's what this proposal is for. All of the projects that are included on this, I would qualify as critical. We wouldn't put them before the community if they were not. And our hope is that we are able to address these needs and then engage our community in a bigger conversation about any other areas of the campus that we may want to improve for our students, which would include, again, the potential thought of auditorium and cafeteria spaces and whatnot. That's a much bigger conversation that we need to engage our community on, but we need to first address these items. This is an overview of the milestone schedule. So if the bond referendum were to pass, it doesn't necessarily mean the work starts right away this summer. There are certain elements, because we do have money set aside for capital repairs that can begin on a shorter time frame. But other items will need to be submitted to SED for approval. That approval process takes time. We would anticipate that all of these projects will be completed by the fall of 2021, were this to be approved May 21st. And this is an overview of that timeline for reference for community members. As I noted, there still are opportunities for folks to come and learn about the specifics as it relates to this project. There is another capital referendum tour May 15th at 6:30. And myself and Nabil will walk the campus with anybody who wants to come along to learn and see the spaces that we're referencing. I also want to mention that this Thursday, we still plan to have a detailed report more specifics, images of the spaces that we are proposing to address. That will take place at the Butterfield Library at 6:30 on Thursday evening. If anyone from the community is available and would like to come in and meet with us about that. We have continued to update information on the district website as it relates to these projects. We have received some feedback through the initial set of tours that took place about more detailed description for the community's reference to be included. So many folks are familiar with the spreadsheet that we've been utilizing. That spreadsheet has been updated. Which includes a bit of detail about each area that is proposed to be included in the referendum, as well as the estimated costs, and also including the soft costs that we have to account for in our estimates. That information is included on the district website as well.
Dr.
Jen?
Bronte,
Yep.
that updated, that's what is here on board docs, right? That's
Correct.
the updated thing.
Correct.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And we will be distributing this as at any public forum that take place. And again, it's on the district website now for reference as well. And again, we're appreciative of that feedback. That was good feedback along the way. You know, we get so inundated in the details, and the projects are so apparent to us because we live with it every day. But the lay community member, when we write climate control, may not know necessarily what that entails. All right. And as far as the funding for this project, we were trying to keep the referendum within the $2.3 million mark. That was very important to us because that's the amount of debt service that we can take on and finance in a manner that allows this proposition to be tax neutral. So there will be no new taxes being paid, no additional taxes being paid for the completion of this project. And we felt that was very important for this particular project. We're able to commit $700,000 of funding from the capital and repair reserves portion to offset the total cost, which would mean that the finance portion of this project is $1.6 million. Anne has worked with our accountants to develop a plan for financing the project in a manner, again, that allows for it to be tax neutral. There is a detailed slide that we have been providing for Anne to speak to. If there's any questions about that, so far no one has asked any questions, so we're assuming everybody just gets it and has been accepting that this is this project's going to be financed in a way that allows it to be tax neutral. And Anne's done a lot of great work on that.
I think that's commendable, and also be very important to note for people who are watching, but people who might not be watching, in reading through the propositions. It's obviously, maybe not obviously, I don't think we can state in the proposition that the intent of the funding is to make it tax neutral.
Sure.
So if you're reading it cold, you're like, oh, how are we going to fund it? The 1.6 is going to come out of tax. So it's, I think, useful to reinforce
Sure.
that the structure has been designed to be tax neutral.
Yes.
I think it's useful.
Thank you, John. Just want to make sure I'm in the same spot. Thank you. Now, in addition to the propositions, there's also other items that will be on the ballot, if you will. One is the library levy. By state law, libraries in New York have the ability to place a separate funding proposition for the funding of your local library on a school district ballot. Some folks are familiar with that. There will be such a proposition on the ballot for this year. I'm sorry. Correct me, Ann.
This happened in 2015.
Right, sorry. So there will not be.
So there will not be, but you will still see the levy on your tax bill. It's
Thank
done
you.
in 2015, and it's on there. Yes.
My apologies. And thank you, Ann. So transitioning from the library levy, one point we haven't emphasized in our budget propositions, and there's just different philosophies on this, is what happens if the budget fails. We feel good about what we've recommended. We feel we've received good feedback along the way. The board has been obviously a key part of that. But if the budget were to fail, what happens next? And in the event that the budget fails, we have the ability to put the same budget or a modified budget before the community one more time before the conclusion of the school year. If that were to fail, so if your budget that you put before the community fails twice, we must enact a contingent budget which sets the tax levy limit at 0 by law. If that were to occur, that in order to set the tax levy at 0, we would have to make an additional $500,000 in reductions to our budget, which would impact program, without a doubt. Again, you've heard me speak before, there's no way you can arrive at some of these figures without looking at the people and the positions that you are funding in your school system. So again, to resolve a debt or a figure of $500,000, we would have to look at the individuals who are working with our kids each day and making some difficult choices about where we were to make further reductions. I feel confident, with what we've put before the community and what we're hearing thus far, is that folks, again, feel good about the work that's been put into this and are generally supportive of Proposition 1. I know there's still some outstanding questions about Proposition 3, but certainly it's my hope we don't get into any type of scenario where we have to think about or consider a contingent budget. So as of today, I believe the complete budget document can be viewed in all school buildings, including the district office. There's also a copy available at the Butterfield Library, and it's posted on the school website. May 21st, polls will be open at 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. in room 105 here in the main building. Also a reminder that in addition to the propositions, it's also a trustee election, and we have 3 candidates running for 2 open seats. And that concludes my overview. And at this point, if there's any questions from members of the community, the mic is open.
So at this point, the floor will be open for comments regarding the public hearing. So if anybody has any questions or comments regarding the public hearing, please feel free to ask.
Yep. Although we took his away. Go ahead and try it, Laura.
There's one here.
Try it, and if it doesn't work, use this one.
Regarding Proposition 3, is it working?
Come on over here, Laura. I want to make sure it picks up your question.
Regarding Proposition 3, have we actually looked at what if we address all of the critical issues through that bond referendum, what the overall impact is going to be to our operations and maintenance? Because I'm assuming that we're doing a lot of constant repairs, and that on an overall operating budget impacts time and money. And then so the question is that if we start going ahead and upgrading these facilities and changing them, will there be an overall long-term efficiency in our operating and maintenance cost?
We've talked about it on an administrative level. I think where we would see, you're right in that we would see some efficiencies picked up in the matters that our facilities crew has to address on a day-to-day basis, not to the point, and again, this is under some assumptions that we're making, but not to the point where we would realize any efficiencies where we would feel comfortable that it may equate to doing any sort of staff reduction, and I just want to be upfront about that. So bus lift repair is a good example. The extent that we have to go to make basic repairs to our buses because our lift doesn't work certainly will enable us to make those repairs more efficiently, but we're still going to need a mechanic to work on our buses, as those matters come up. I think there'll be some savings that we realize from having to contract out some repairs that we currently can't make in-house because we don't have the ability to get to lift our bus, in a way to do some of our own work on it. So if there's any efficiencies or savings to be gleaned, it will likely be on services that we're currently contracting out for where we no longer will need to. Which enables us, and also on the other end, I think our staff will be in a better position to do some preventative maintenance that will enable us to prevent long-term issues from arising. Yep.
I was just going to ask, I have to admit, I haven't been on the tour, although I've heard this a number of times. And the one thing I remember hearing, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the window replacement with the seals, there is longer-term risk of like the bricks on the wall
Correct.
shearing off. So,
I
Yes.
think
well,
you were on the tour. You
Ah.
were on the tour.
oh, I haven't been on the public tour.
You've
I've
been on the public
trust-
tour.
Sorry.
Yeah, you've been on the
No,
board
tru-
tour.
The board tour.
VIP
Different tour.
access,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
3 hours.
The 3 hours. We were lost. We sang. But as a potential future cost save, that
Correct.
struck me as
Yes.
significant.
Yes, we're in a position where with those windows, if they were to continue to go on in the manner in which and we were just to operate
Right.
without making any upgrades to them, there's the potential there for increased damage. The sills need to be replaced. The way the sills are pitched right now, either we're running the risk or we're having water that is able to come in between the sill and the window, which could damage the masonry over the long term. So we want to be wary of that.
Good evening. Judy
You can look it
Farrell,
up.
parent of a Haldane 8th grader and also Phillipstown board member. And I just want to thank Dr. Benante, Ann, and the board for this budget, which I think is a good investment in our children and in the facilities. And I reviewed it in detail, and I really appreciate the additional investment in curriculum and instruction, in security and in communications. And I would just like to urge my fellow residents of the Haldane School District to get out and vote on May 21st. It's really important to our schools, to our children, and to our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Farrell.
Thank you. Any additional comments regarding public hearing? Sure, go ahead.
I have to admit, this was the first time I looked at the 3-part year over year. And one of the comments I made at the very beginning of this process was admin versus other pieces. And one of the things I think I teased out after doing it, I saw that it went up substantially, but I think that's because the BOCES curriculum got moved into admin. Did it come out of program? Was that, okay, great. So that puts my mind at ease. Thank you very much.
Good catch, John. Any other comments, questions? Okay, at this time, I'd like to formally close the public hearing. And we'll move on with our regular agenda at this point.
I think you're on there
Yep,
first.
I am. Okay, just a reminder, in case you haven't heard, May 21st. Please come out and vote. Voting will take place in room 105 in this building. Polls will open at 7 and will close at 9. The Board of Ed will meet at 7:30 here in this room. Additionally, voter registration will be held on Thursday, May 16th from 4 to 8 in the lobby of this building. Okay?
If you register to vote on the 16th, can you vote on the 21st?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yep. And we're talking about absentee ballots later. Sorry. Good.
Yeah, I could email the board about this, but I'm just gonna say it now. I had said that I would be at the Thursday, budget forum, but we've had a family issue and I actually have to leave town. So I won't be there, and I don't think anybody else from the board could be there on Thursday night, so I'm sorry about that, but I can't.
No worries. I think Dr. Benante and Ann
We'll have
We'll
it
keep
covered.
you
will have it
apprised.
covered for sure.
Yep.
I will
And we
try to get
apologize.
back. If my plane gets in, I will try to.
Yeah,
What time is it?
this has been the week of
What time is it on Thursday?
6:30. Sorry.
This has been a challenging week for.
It's a busy time.
Yeah, for
It's a busy time.
evening events. So thank you to the public for our cooperation in trying to manage all of the events that we've been
Lot going on.
trying to get to.
Mhm.
Okay, Dr. Benante.
Yeah,
you're up.
so I have a few comments this evening. The first, it's Teacher Appreciation Week, and May 7th is the actual day designated as Teacher Appreciation Day. And I'm tardy on a notice to all staff today and wishing our teachers and our staff my most heartfelt thanks for their service to our community. Our staff have been really challenged this year. We've encountered a few challenging situations over the course of the school year. And I think when you're under stress like that, you start to see, what you're made up of personally and what your school culture and your community is. And I think in those times, really the best of our staff really came out. Their sense of camaraderie, their sense of compassion, their sense of empathy, and their persistence. It's been a long school year. There's been a lot of good, but there's been some really tough things as well. And I just want to extend my appreciation to all of our teachers and all of our staff for this week. And really, every week should be Teacher Appreciation Week and Educator Appreciation Week. But I certainly want to make a point to mention that on today, especially the day that's designated to do so. Also, in addition to that, I want to thank our PTA, who've done some great things over the course of this week to acknowledge our faculty and staff, and that's ongoing. It's really been a nice little change to the day when folks from our PTA are coming into our office today. There's some donuts floating around, cider donuts, the best cider donuts. And I know they have some things planned throughout the rest of the week as well. Last month or last Board of Education meeting, I misspoke, and I need to clarify the record on something. I was speaking about Dr. Richter's profile in the Arts Alliance newsletter, and I really appreciate the newsletter, and I encouraged other people, if they haven't checked it out, to do so, not realizing that the reason why I was able to read that article about Dr. Richter is because it was part of my member benefit as the member of the Arts Alliance. So there is no article to go read broadly, but if you become a member of the Arts Alliance, you have the benefit of seeing such profiles of our educators and other great things going on in the arts community here in Haldane, and I encourage others to check that out. So I erroneously sent any community member who may be watching off to go see an article that necessarily wouldn't be there if you did not have your member benefit. So I wanted to point that out and clarify that for folks who are listening. I see Laura, she is here. And I wanted to thank Laura and Liz Kelly for their work around the Circle and Flagpole area, which has been a big hit. If you've not had the opportunity to walk through the main entrance area of the school, Laura and Liz were the force, the inspiration. The kids were the inspiration, but you appropriately engaged our kids in a design, a redesign of that space. And what you see and what you experience as you're walking into and out of our schools is really important. Often it sets the tone for the experience our kids are having on the school day, and that's their experience with our drivers, but then getting off the bus and the physical space of the campus, I think, has an impact on our students' mindset, and our staff's mindset for that matter. And I know it's not done yet. I know there's still work to be done, but if you see and get a sense of what's going on in the Circle area, I think it's really beautiful. And I know over the next couple of years, it's going to be even more beautiful. And I thank you and Liz for that many times over, and I know our community does as well. Looks great. Just a note to our community that the elementary principal search is underway. This has been a process that's been ongoing, but we're now beyond the screening of applicants. We do have a collection of candidates that we're bringing back for second round interviews, which will begin next week, meeting with parents who are interested in providing some thoughts and perspectives about the qualities and attributes of the school leader that we're looking for. Tomorrow night, that will be here, and folks have RSVP'd for that. And I'm looking forward to that conversation. I had the opportunity to meet with the faculty and staff of the elementary school last week to talk a little bit about the process and their thoughts. And I feel we have some really good candidates, and I'm excited to meet them as part of this process. So that's ongoing. Our goal is to have an elementary principal identified and before the board within the next month. So it goes quick once you get in the process. So we're looking forward to that. And lastly, I just did want to include some remarks about one agenda item that will be on a bit later. This evening's agenda includes my recommendation to appoint Mrs. Tara Rounds to the position of Director of Pupil Personnel Services effective July 1, 2019. As you know, this position has been filled with interim support really since September, I believe. And it's a good opportunity to once again thank Ms. Bonnie Hart, Dr. Selena Fisher, and Ms. Mary Ellen Herzog for their support over the course of this school year. And Mary Ellen continues to work with us on a week-to-week basis right now, and she's been great. They've all been great. Tara graduates next week from Bank Street Graduate School of Education. Congratulations. Tara's been a part of the Future School Leaders Academy, and for the past 11 years, as many of those in the audience know, Tara served as our school psychologist and CSE, CPSE chairperson. The selection process for the director of PPS really began in October with our first search, which did not yield a successful candidate. This February, the second round commenced, and Tara was selected from many candidates, which included several sitting administrators in special ed or pupil personnel leadership from throughout our region. The review process took place over a 1-month period of time and included separate meetings with our teachers, with our administrators, with our group of our parents, with our Board of Education, and with me. And I was most impressed with Tara's ability to handle such an extensive review with a sense of grace and humility. Tara is committed to Haldane, there is no doubt about that, and will offer much needed stability in a department that's been through many transitions over the course of the past 4 years. Through the interview process, I appreciated Tara's connection to Haldane's history while remaining steadfast in our need to re-examine our practices and procedures to most effectively meet the needs of our most exceptional learners. This will take time. It'll take a lot of good listening, deliberate action, and accountability. And I know that Tara understands this, and she has my full support. I know she has the support of our administrative team, the support of both Dr. Fisher and Ms. Herzog, who have both agreed to serve as mentors for Tara next year, which I think speaks to not only their experience for her, but how much promise they see in Tara's leadership and ability to be an exceptional school leader in the area of pupil personnel services. And I think it's a good reminder, really, in any leadership position, and this certainly applies here, that Tara's success in this role will be our students' success in our school system. I'd like to point out that the transition will also necessitate the hiring of additional psychologists, as Tara won't be filling that role anymore, and the addition of a mental health professional or behaviorist that's also included in the budget. Tara will work with me and our administrative team in facilitating those hiring processes respectively so that we can bring high-quality candidates before the board in the coming months. There are some procedural matters just in this evening's agenda that I just want to make the board aware of prior to your action on Tara's appointment or in conjunction with. The board has to act to create the title of Director of PPS because that's not a title we actually had in our administrative unit. It was Director of PPS and I think Innovative Instructional Practices, an old title. So we should modify that. And also there's a supplemental memorandum of agreement that's included in the agenda with the Administrators Association formally recognizing the title of Director of PPS in their recognition clause. And it's just a note that this position will be associated with the administrators unit. So a procedural thing there, just as you see those in succession on the agenda this evening. And with that, I know that's for action later on in the agenda, but I did want to include those remarks prior to the board's action.
Great.
That concludes my comments for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Benante. I also want to echo your comments regarding our staff. We do appreciate all the hard work and effort that you put forth each and every day. So thank you. And as well as recognizing the PTA for all of their efforts and all the good work that they do for our staff, students, and everyone. Okay, moving on to committee minutes from the wellness meeting that took place on March 25th are there for our viewing. And at this time, if there's any communication from the public, please feel free. So, sorry, that.
Sorry, Tara. You can pick it up.
Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted to say thank you so much to the Board of Ed and, of course, Dr. Benante for providing me with this opportunity. And I'm so excited to start this work for our students, and I'm looking forward to joining this administrative team. So thank you very much.
That's
okay. Hi. So I just want to say a couple of things. First, speaking
as department chair of the special ed department for middle and high school. I'm very excited that Tara is going to be our PPS director. She has my full support, she has our department's full support, and we're all really, really looking forward to working with you. So congratulations, Tara, you definitely deserve it. And also, I would like to speak about the PTA as well. I'd like to offer my sincere thanks. So far, we always feel very supported by our PTA, and they always do an amazing job for Teacher Appreciation Week, and this year is no different. They've been spoiling us rotten, and we really, truly, truly appreciate everything that they're doing for us.
Thank you. Okay, any additional questions, comments? Sure, go ahead.
I would just like to thank the team for taking the 8th graders across. Having a great time, and I think it's a great Haldane tradition, so thank you.
It's fair, they're not back yet, so before you thank us, you may want to, I'm just kidding.
That was a fun trip. Continues on many, many years.
Did you go?
I did.
Wow.
Yes. Okay. We'll just leave it at that.
That's fantastic. Ages ago, obviously.
Okay,
Jeez.
moving on
Yeah.
to information reports. These reports are here for our reviewing. These are the March and April reports. So we'll vote on them next meeting. All right, we're on to consent agenda minutes. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda financial. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda personnel. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's official.
Okay, moving on to new business. Ms. Familaro, CSE, CPSE.
These are the CSE, CPSE recommendations. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the recommendations of the Committee on Special Education and Preschool Special Education as presented.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Familaro, are you going to give
that
us
me?
a spiel about the absentee ballot
Yes.
application?
Absentee ballots applications are available in the district office every day that we're open from 8 till 3. A link to the absentee ballot application is also available on our website. If you go to the homepage, haldaneschool.org, there is a link on the homepage to the budget page, which includes, in addition to all the budget documents or links to all the budget documents, a link to the absentee ballot application. Completed applications need to be received by me by May 14th, so you need to send them in right away. And if you want to have the ballot mailed to you, if you plan to vote absentee and you fill out an application, you may pick up a ballot in person up until the day before the budget vote, which is May 20th, and the election on May 21st.
Just as a quick question.
Yeah.
So you couldn't both register this year and vote absentee, just given the timing that I think you said, because the registration is up till the 16th? Or
The
you
last
could?
date of registration is the 16th, and
Okay.
yes, you can apply for an absentee ballot at that time,
Okay.
if you like.
You got to register first, then apply for the
You have to
absentee.
register
Okay.
first,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Okay, thank you for that complicated information. Okay, next item. We are at the point where we need to work on Dr. Benante's evaluation. So we need to figure out some appropriate dates that we can do so.
Peggy, do you want to talk through what that process is for everybody?
So the process is that, I mean, to be honest, I can't remember exactly how we've done it in the past. Evan Schwartz always used to lead the process, but this is what I had in mind. There is a document that we use and we plan to continue to use that's provided, and guidance for superintendent evaluation that's provided by the New York State School Board Association. And what I was thinking is that we would do sort of, the board would go through and do its review, and you could do your self-evaluation sort of at the same time. And then, because I can't remember, it feels like in the past maybe Dr. Bowers did her evaluation and then we did it. But anyway, I thought it would be nice for us to go through and answer the questions and put together our information and then have you do that. And then meet, where you could present your self-evaluation, and then I really think at the same evening we could then also provide our feedback. I have been aware that you've been so busy with the budget. I think in the past maybe we've started this a little bit earlier, but what I'm hoping is that if folks on the board are available, we could devote some time. Well, we need to decide some dates. One option would be for us to meet before our next meeting, right? So that meeting starts at 7:30. It would require getting here a little bit early, which I know can be difficult for Margaret and John. So doing it then. If that date didn't work, we would just need to identify another evening when we would meet, go into executive session, and have our meeting to go through the questions as a group. I think that before we came together as a group, I'd make sure everybody had a copy of that document. And before we come together as a board to go through the questions and sort of fill out the evaluation collectively, we each go through it on our own, making our own assessments and taking notes, just so that you're not sort of needing to think through that at the same time as we're coming together to collaborate.
This is how the process has been done in the past.
It
So
is,
it's
yeah.
not
It is right.
it's not a different process, but she's just going through so that everybody
Fantastic.
understands. and
Right. Oh, right. It's not a different process.
It's not a different process.
That's fine.
Right.
And it's actually the same evaluation tool.
That we
We
use.
hired Dr. Benante, that's in his contract, that's
Oh,
the
good.
tool that
Yeah.
we would use.
Agreed, yeah.
And it's been the one that we've used in the past, put out by the New York State School Boards Association.
Yeah.
So for me, the 21st is currently fine,
Uh-huh.
if that's
And I
the
can do
evening.
21st too.
And could you all meet before,
Yeah.
could you meet at 6?
Yeah,
So give it-
absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. That would
Yeah,
be
let's do
perfect, because
that.
I have to travel a ridiculous amount over the next
Let's
few
do
weeks.
6, and 6 to 7:30 should be plenty of time.
Yes.
Okay.
For
So-
the board to evaluate,
Yeah,
and
go through.
Peggy will send the
I'll
board.
I'll send the document out to everybody to make sure everybody has it. It's even in a PDF fillable form. So
Yes.
it's actually, you can do it however you like.
Yes.
You're gonna send it out, we're gonna do self-filling out, we're gonna align collectively as a board on the
Yes.
21st, and then we're gonna have a conversation with Dr. Benante on the something other time.
We'll need to figure out that
Okay.
other date.
Great.
Is all this sounding?
Works for me.
So the only issue is that date, it might need to be, if possible, the second meeting in June, which is a delay between there, or we can find another night. Why don't we, I think that's the other thing, to figure out the date that will come together. The options are to do it at our second June meeting.
8th,
What?
that's the 18th.
No,
Or-
the 18th, yeah, to do it on June 18th, or to come up with a different date when I'm in town before then, which will be quite challenging, I'll just tell you right now.
So June 18th being the one where we have our collaborative
With-
conference
yeah,
together,
mhm,
and we
mhm.
have Phil's and we sit down.
Right, yeah.
Or
think it
we
would-
can, sorry, I think we've actually remoted you in last year.
We could do that. I mean, spring's just
busy.
hard for me because we're
Right.
collecting data
No, I
for
know.
like all of our studies, and so I'm
I
out in the
know.
field a lot. But I don't think, this is a year where I wouldn't want to join
Okay.
remotely, since I'm leading the process.
Yes,
of-
Do you
thank
think it
you.
would be beneficial to maybe you could just send us an email with the dates that you are in town?
Oh, I could do that too.
Because we might be able to find a date,
That's a little
because June
sooner.
18th feels really kind of
close.
late,
It does.
actually.
I think so, too.
Because after we meet with Phil, then we still need to write up the evaluations, have
Right.
him read it.
Right.
We still have stuff to do.
Right.
So I think it would
That's
be
right.
better if we
think
could
that
try to
does
have
make
it
sense.
wrapped up
I
by
think that
like
makes
June
sense.
18th.
That
So
makes
if we
sense.
could meet before then.
Right. Why don't we, I'll definitely do that, and we'll find a date before June 18th to do our meeting with Phil. And then
Sounds
plan
like
to
a
have
plan.
it written by the 18th.
I think that would be,
I think
if
that's,
possible.
thanks. I think that's good. Good.
Works. So the 21st, 6 exec session.
Right, I'll give the notice for that.
Great, thank you.
Graduation is the 22nd or the 29th?
22nd.
22nd.
Okay.
Okay.
We're good.
Oh,
Okay.
and I'm sorry, Laura,
No
it's not
worries.
on our new business agenda, but Dr. Benante had asked Peggy and I if we could just speak for a few moments about our policy committee work.
Awesome.
It's a last minute addition. I'm sorry for the audience who are just ready to scoot out, which you're welcome to still do. So Peggy and I and Dr. Benante have been
Many fruitful meetings.
have spent many fruitful meetings with our policy manuals, which are this thick in written form. But to back it up, the process, and Dr. Benante chime in here, but the board said, we need to do a policy audit. We felt like it was really time to clear the slate, get the policies really tight, update what needs to be updated, clear out the policies that are duplicated, and then get it all on online so that the board can easily access it, so that the public can easily access it. And so not only is that just, a good thing to do, but it was also part of our goals of better communication with the public and a policy manual that is easily accessible is part of that better communication goal. So we've been working on that. We've worked with Erie Bosse's because the process of how do you start with a policy manual audit was daunting, and there are people who do this for a living. And so Erie Bosse's gave us kind of a blank slate policy manual. And they said, these are the ones you need to make sure you have. These are the ones you need to make sure are customized for Haldane. These are the ones that are state and federal mandates. And
As well as incorporating the policies that, the other policies that
Right.
we had. Right,
Right,
yeah.
right.
really
And then all the work that we've done
over the years.
is also in there. So they compiled a draft of our policy manual and gave it to us in January, February. And so since then, the three of us have been meeting with each other to review policies that have been pulled out by Erie Bosse's, called out to say, these are the most important ones. Make sure these are how you want them. Make sure this one is customized, etc.
Correct.
So they helped us kind of prioritize. It wasn't like start at page 1 and get to page 1,000,000. It was start with these.
That comes later.
Start with these. And so we started with those, and we've gone through them. And it's about 80.
I'd say it's about 80 policies.
It's about
at
80
this point.
policies
Yeah.
that we've written, that we've read, that we've taken notes on, that we've asked questions to our legal team about. Now I think the next step is that our reading, Peggy and I's reading of those 80 policies is done for the moment. Dr. Benante hooks up with some of our administrative team that really needs to be reviewing some of these policies, and our legal team that needs to be reviewing some of these policies. And then Dr. Benante sends this back to Erie Bosse's and says, okay, I think this is our first draft.
Correct.
And then they send it back to us, and then the board,
That's the full board.
the full board
First read.
can
Yep.
make a decision to adopt the policy manual as is, so we can get it online, searchable,
Correct.
and then we can to step 2, which is going page 1 through whatever to continue.
Yeah.
Does that all make sense? I don't know. if I
And they were
described it well.
able to incorporate the existing.
Yes, and that, that's the one thing I think that I would clarify, because Jen said blank slate, but I think really what she meant was they took their recommended policy, sort of what they know needs to be in a policy manual, because they're attorneys and experts in this, and our existing policy manual, and melded the two to give us what they recommended.
Right.
At that point, that's when we've reviewed these policies with Phil. They're going to be reviewed with the administration and our legal team. Those changes will be made, and then that is the policy manual that we'll bring to the board to approve. I just want to point out that one of the changes that we're making to the policy manual is instituting a policy committee. Well, because in the past, and I think there must have been many years when it worked. There wasn't a policy committee, and the board, and I think we had done this a couple of times, possibly before you joined, John, is if there was a new policy, we'd do a first read and talk about it together, but that's clearly not a way to stay on top of what is really one of our two primary responsibilities. And so, yeah.
So it's in motion.
Yeah.
It's in motion.
Sounds great. Thank you for your hard work.
It's actually really interesting.
It is really interesting.
Yeah.
Just so I understand the process. Okay, so it's coming, you're doing the full sweep, you're meeting with the administration, you're kicking it back to Erie, but it's like, this is where we want. They're gonna edit it and pull it all together, send it back to us, at which point we adopt.
Yes.
The full board will yes.
It
Read
probably needs
some
to
of
go
it?
to a first read.
So
It'll be a first read,
Right.
Okay.
so you get to review it
Okay.
before you adapt it.
I mean, the expectation is not that you really read the whole
whole-
policy manual.
Yeah.
You can have some confidence that
Oh, I have a lot of
your
confidence.
policy committee, your superintendent, your legal team, and Erie BOCES has said that
Yeah.
this is pretty good.
Yeah.
You're welcome to read it every single
I
page
have no idea.
if
But
you'd
if there
like
were
to.
different pieces that different members of the board were more or less interested in, they were like,
Correct.
I really want to read the policy on X.
Right.
And so it can dip in. And then post the adoption, if there's this is not meant to be, this is it for
No.
a year.
No,
It's
no.
like, this is our base of what we
It's a
understand to be
briefing
the current.
document.
And then the process will kick off a week later.
Right.
Like, what do we
Exactly.
want? Okay,
Right.
got it.
Exactly.
I would
It's
say-
the
Exactly.
of what we consider
But we
current.
have to have a policy manual.
We don't
that,
really have one now.
Well, we
We
do.
do.
We
Okay,
do.
sorry.
But we need to have one adopted so that we can put it into a searchable format and we can
Okay.
really start working with it
Got it.
in a more accessible way.
Yeah, this is
thank
the heavy lift right now, is getting it to a point where we have a foundation that we feel confident in or of, to then begin putting ourselves on a schedule for reviewing policies
Yep.
monthly, bi-monthly, whatever it may be. And that's where the board, I would invite the board to be very deliberate in reviewing those policies that are
Right.
presented to you in a much more manageable amount
Yeah.
once we get past this first phase. So.
Okay, thank you.
And the plan for having the policy committee, I think, is that, assuming, because I think that the anticipated date, hoped for date for adoption would be probably at our August meeting, and then we'd begin our full policy audit process, starting in the 2019-2020 school year. I mean, I think the purpose of having a policy committee is that Jen and I and Phil do a first read of those policies, identify anything that we think, given our experience having done this, sorry, I might sneeze, and then make those changes and then bring them to the board. I mean, so still every board member does have the responsibility to read it, but you're reading them knowing that there's already been a concerted, careful effort. Not that we want to usurp anybody's responsibility.
Right, but and you would mark the pieces that had any kind of significant change.
Yeah, of course.
Really, right now, you're compiling.
We're just
Right.
compiling, really.
Right.
So this is a much better process than we've experienced in the past, I will say. So
Yeah.
thank you,
Yeah,
Jen
thank you.
and Peggy. Previously, we used to get scattered policies, and it was hard to, Margaret was always saying, but wait, we had a different policy. So this is a much more organized method, and obviously our current policy manual is, what we are abiding by, and that is online. It's not searchable. So we're trying to make this a searchable policy
Great. Thank you.
manual. Okay. Any questions, comments from the public? Sure.
What's the timeframe for the process?
The policy process?
Oh, yeah, just this process that you're talking about.
So,
There's the review. It sounds like it's long.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, so, we'll reiterate, it was a lot of information. So the process of getting a new, fully audited by Erie BOCES policy manual in place, we hope is before the beginning of the 2019-2020 school. What will happen at that point is it will then become a continuous, never-ending process of review and continual review, right? Just because things change, it's important that folks know what, one of the things that happens is Erie BOCES periodically sends us new policies that they think need to be updated, but then we also just want to, as a district, want to be making sure that we're reviewing the policies and make sure they reflect what we want the policies to be.
And then further, there's other things that happen, like policies just come up, right? So the state just mandated every school needs to have a sexual harassment policy. So we were all here at the board meeting having a conversation about it and going over ours with a fine-tooth comb and making sure it was up to snuff. And so that'll continue to happen. There will be off-scheduled policies that come up that we need to deal with. But the plan after the manual is adopted, which we hope will be in August, is to start the full audit process, that ongoing look at the policies and make sure they reflect what our school district needs in a systematic way. It's not just start at page one. And we'll figure out a systematic way to go through it, but it'll be ongoing.
Any additional questions or comments? Okay, with that said, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session where the Board of Education intends to convene for the purpose of discussing the employment history of a particular individual, and there will be no action taken, and we will not be returning.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.